On proportionality, I'm going to have to call the honourable member Andrew Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
What proportions were you?
Mr. Chair, I'm just going to speak a little bit in the area of the building supplies bill and in relation to the regulatory impact statement that was prepared in relation to residential construction materials. And it is very interesting when you analyse this, the impact that potentially it will have on New Zealand manufacturers. It says in the regulatory impact statement, one of the preferred options to temporarily suspend the anti-dumping regime in relation to key construction materials was not explicitly consulted on. It emerged as an option through the latest round of consultation, which highlighted the potential for unforeseen effects on other sectors beyond residential construction. The new option minimises this risk. MB, the Department of Everything, is comfortable that the consultation provided sufficient information to assess the risks, costs and benefits of the additional option, notwithstanding that it was not explicitly consulted on. Consultation on the final suite of proposed options has not occurred due to budget sensitivity. So here we have a government policy that has had minimal consultation, which has potential effect on other sectors beyond the residential construction industry, but which hasn't been widely consulted on, but which the government is hanging its hat on and saying that it's going to save $3,500 per house. If you look further into the regulatory impact statement, it then says cost of residential construction. As indicated above, our preferred options package would reduce the cost of a newly built 202 square metre house by around $900. I'm seeing the figure $900, not $3,500, Minister. Could the Minister please explain, or is that sort of another figure that's been popped out of the air, the $3,500? But it says here by around $900. Then it says 21,300 new dwellings were consented throughout New Zealand in 2013. If a similar number of consents are issued in 2014 and each saved $900, the total savings would be $19,170,000. Well, that's interesting because today Fletcher Building have already had $75 million knocked off their balance sheet, off their capitalisation. So they're doing a good job here. The government's saving $19 million over the industry, but they've managed to knock $75 million off Fletcher's in one day. Further in the impact statement report, it says dumping can be remedied by the imposition of anti-dumping duties at the border to level the playing field. Since 1990, anti-dumping duties have not been applicable to imports from Australia, which is fair enough. Under CER, you wouldn't expect so. Anti-dumping duties are currently applied to 3 construction materials: reinforced steel bar from Thailand, plasterboard from Thailand, and nails from China. And it's interesting that the impact statement refers to those 3 particular incidents, and it refers that in 2011 Winstone Wallboards brought a case in terms of plasterboard coming out of Thailand. The investigation found that Thai plasterboard was being dumped, that this was likely to continue, and this would likely cause a recurrence of material injury to Winstones. Secondly, duties on nails, wire nails from China were placed. Again, it was found that 3 New Zealand companies potentially were being affected by this, and particularly the largest one, Wire Plus, had the largest market share. And it said they had suffered material injury caused by dumped imports of nails from China. So there's another 3 companies in New Zealand that are obviously now going to be feeling the heat of cheap, questionable quality materials from China. And the third one was reinforcing steel bars and coils from Thailand, and that was New Zealand Pacific Steel. And again, in the case of Pacific Steel, there was dumped steel coming out of Thailand, which caused material injury to Pacific Steel. Now, Pacific Steel, as many of us know, is the biggest recycler of New Zealand metals in New Zealand. They take a large amount of the recycled steel and cans and all sorts of aluminium, all sorts of stuff in New Zealand that comes that you put out in your recycling bins. A huge amount of that ends up at Pacific Steel, melted down, put back into steel, and some of it does end up going into reinforcing and that sort of thing to go back into our construction industry. But this government is quite happy to basically set them adrift in a leaky boat and say to Pacific Steel and the likes of Mr. Chair.
The honourable member, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Goff, you can have your call in a minute. But Mr. Chair, it's interesting. These companies are iconic companies like Pacific Steel in New Zealand, like Winstone Wallboards, like the other companies making plasterboard. And it is interesting that this government that is so close with the Chinese, well, they are, because they've got ministers going up to China every second week, having lovely private dinners and having all sorts of things in China. They're so close with China, and obviously with some of these other places, that they're very happy to sell our New Zealand companies, our iconic New Zealand companies, sell them down the river, leave them out in the cold for the next 3 years, and watch cheap, nasty nails coming in from China, perhaps wallboard coming in from Thailand that might look good on the wall for the first 6 to 12 months, but a year later when it's all cracking with no warranties and guarantees, what's it going to be like then, Mr. Goldsmith? And when the shoddy steel reinforcing goes into the concrete floors, and in 5 to 10 years we see it all rusting and blowing and concrete floors cracking in New Zealand, a bit like the leaky homes that the national government gave us. When we see that, what are we going to say then? Oh, well, we saved $900 per house and we saved $19.7 million, but boy, we've got a bit of a problem in our construction industry because we've got a lot of shonky, unwarranted products in the market that also put a lot of our good, hard workers in some of these industries in New Zealand possibly down the road because the sales of their products went downhill. Well, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, New Zealand First does not support that. We don't think it stacks up. New Zealand First stands for putting New Zealanders first, and we will continue to put New Zealanders first, and we will certainly not abandon the manufacturers in New Zealand.
Finally, I call the honourable member Phil Goff.
Mr. Chairman.